Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade. Should you buy Xanathar's Guide to Everything? You know, this is billed as a supplemental rule book. And it's kind of interesting because it's a cross section of a lot of the things you find in both the Player's Manual and the Dungeon Master's Guide. Now, there aren't a lot of creatures in here, there are really almost none. But it's a lot of stuff you find in those other two books, just kind of expanded. And so it's interesting. I think the bottom line up front is this is kind of an advanced book. And so I would not recommend you buy this unless you are really into D&D and you're really just burning through all the kind of content that you have in the other books. And let me show you one of the things that this book has a lot of are these new subclasses. And so you can see every one of these is a new subclass. And, you know, it's hard to think you get a lot of value out of that. How many more fighters are you going to create that you'll make a samurai and a cavalier and a, arcane archer, I think is the third one. And so it's kind of hard to imagine getting a ton of value out of that. Now, you might see one of them and read about the new subclass and think, man, that is just really the one for me. I've always wanted to play a ranger, and that's a subclass that is just super exciting. But the idea that you're ever going to use even a small number of these is crazy. But there are some places where this book is more useful. Okay, one of them is tool proficiencies, and this is something that the original player guide really lacked. It was, hey, I've got these toolkits and I've got these tool proficiencies, but the original player's handbook doesn't tell me anything about how to use them, how to put them together, what to do with them. And so this is much better. It kind of gives you, for each one, it'll say components, and it'll tell you kind of a description of what's in the toolkit. And then it'll give you examples of where you might use your tool proficiency to give you a bonus to your saving throws or to your attempts to do things with your different skills. And so that's really useful to kind of expand the flavor of these toolkits. And of course, they just have gobs of them in here. They probably have about 15 or 20 or so different types of toolkits. And that's really nice because when I first saw that list of toolkits, I thought, oh man, there's so much potential depth and flavor there, but it just was not hashed out. So Xanathar's Guide to Everything has that hashed out. And again, the second place they really do that is with traps. And they even call it Traps Revisited, like they're acknowledging, hey, we kind of screwed it up the first time in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Now, the Dungeon Master's Guide had a section on traps. And really what it was is they would explain specific things like, here's how to run a crossbow trap that shoots a crossbow bolt when someone breaks a tripwire. Or here's how to run a pit trap. Or here's how to run, any type of like pressure plate trap. And it was kind of constraining because it was like they gave you very good specifics on a few types of common traps. And what this does in Xanathar's Guide to Everything is it says, okay, well, here's how you can kind of come up with your own traps. And here's some effects, here's some types of trips, here's some ways to make simple or complex traps, and, how to make all of this work together so that you really have the latitude to design any type of trap you might want, and you have a lot more creative space. And it also emphasizes a point that I think is important of not overusing traps. And so it's good to kind of tell people, hey, be careful on how many traps you put in. Otherwise, your players are going to waste their entire section carefully scrutinizing every inch of the dungeon, making sure it's not a trip that will activate some kind of trap. And in the same way, they have Downtime Revisited. I love the downtime stuff because you can kind of help your players think about what they're doing in between sessions, what their characters are doing, and it's almost like a fourth time period when we talk about how D&D has normally 3 different kind of compressed periods of time. You have kind of traveling, you have social interaction, and you have combat. And here, it's like downtime adds a 4th layer that's unique in that it doesn't occur typically during your session. And so this creates this concept of rivals that are other NPCs who might try to hurt you in various ways, either politically or socially or maybe physically. And it gives some good, interesting downtime activities and really expands upon them. Like if you want to try to buy a magic item, it's kind of hard to buy them because magic items are rare and expensive, and so you have to put effort into finding a magic item to buy, especially if you're looking for a specific one. I got a kick out of this carousing section of how you kind of schmooze people to gain favor and how it might backfire and you make an enemy while you're trying to carouse, or it may backfire in that you just kind of get a reputation as a suck up or something like that. If you want to craft items, this was all really good. And again, this kind of ties in with some of the kits, because the toolkits, because you might be doing things like crafting healing potions, using your herbalism kit, things like that. So I thought this was really good expansion of those kind of rules. But you also have to ask yourself, are we getting too much into the weeds here? Are we getting too far down into the books telling us how to play and what to do, and less into our own creativity and storytelling? And so, I'm kind of grappling with that question right now, and I'm not sure what the answer is yet. Another good thing this book goes into is common magic items, and it even admits there just weren't many in the Dungeon Master's Guide of common magic items. And, if they're common, they're the ones you're going to run into the most, and we need a good variety of them that make the game interesting. And so some of these actually are also in the Dragon of Ice Spire Peak starter kit, but and some of them were also in the Dungeon Master's Guide, but it's expanded here with even more. And so it's several pages of those. And then a bunch more magic item tables. This is just reprinted information. This doesn't add any value. I feel like this was just here to add some more pages to the book. So, and then it has a whole bunch more spells. Maybe that'll be useful to you. Maybe you're already overwhelmed by the incredible number of spells available. And then this appendix on character names. I thought this was kind of cool to just finally have one of these in paper form at the table while you're playing, so you don't have to get on your phone and find it. This goes on and on for about 20 pages maybe. So, as far as content, I'd say like it's a mixed bag. Some of it's way too advanced, some of it's a little basic, some of it's valueless. Some of it seems like it could be really important and interesting, like how to use all those toolkits. I feel like those toolkits should have been in the player's guide or the Dungeon Master's Guide. But again, overall, I'm just going to say, unless you are playing a lot of D&D and you can get a lot of value out of those extra character subclasses, this is probably one of the later books you want to buy. In fact, I would say you probably want to go with, one of the dedicated campaign books first instead of this. And, one last thing that I really noticed handling this book is the paper quality is just not as nice. I know some people, maybe I care about that too much. Maybe I'm in the minority. Maybe most people, maybe it doesn't matter. But, it's a much thinner book than the three main books, the Monster Manual, the Dungeon Master's Guide, and the Player's Manual. So it's a smaller book and the paper quality is less, but the price is not significantly less. Those other three core books, you'll usually pay about $30 to $35. I got this for $25 used on Amazon, and it was really legitimately a used like new. I mean, I couldn't find anything wrong with it. So, yeah, you're just gonna have to evaluate for yourself if you think this is worth it. I think for most people, especially casual D&D players, it's probably not worth it. So if you like this kind of content, like, comment, share, and subscribe. Join me on Final Trade. I'd love to have you. Thanks.